The base is dropped on another Soccer Down here. It's a Tuesday. It is the Tuesday tune-up, and your question of the day is, what teams, what players, what aspects of the game need a tune-up going into 2021? You can share your answers with us on Twitter at Soccer Down here. I'm at Longshoe. Jarrett_Smith is lurking in the background, as he is prone to do.
As I am prone to do.
Yeah.
Can I just pick officiating off the top?
Yeah, well, actually, we're going to get into that. Really good piece over at The Athletic on how assignments are done in England, and I'd love to know how they're done here. We'll get into that. We'll get into all of the aspects of tune-ups for 2021, which I think we could all use going into a new year. We'll get into the silly season. There have been some silly things going on this morning, some silly rumors, some silly innuendo, maybe not silly moves, but there's a couple to actually get into. We'll do that. We'll talk about MLS and some teams to watch going into 2021, going into this silly season. And Club America might actually have a new manager, possibly, maybe, kind of, sort of. It was the news was first broken by somebody that I don't necessarily trust, because we've been down this road here in Atlanta before. John Sutcliffe, ESPN, still waiting on Andres Guardado. Still waiting. I think I've actually seen rumors that he's going to be the first signing.
3 teams waiting.
Now it sounds like Charlotte. There's somebody starting a rumor like, oh no, he's going to go to Charlotte. I'm like, is he going to be signing for a team in 10 years when he's 40 years old? I don't know. He started the rumor. It's actually been picked up by a lot of different people, so I want to give him his credit because he might be right on this one, but we'll see what happens. We'll get into that too. So lots of different things to get into. The biggest one is a certain match today, Jarrett, that, I don't want to say good versus evil because that's kind of really, really mean here, but it is El Loco versus Big Sam. It is the crazy man of Leeds United and the wild, open, very aggressive way of playing, the fearless way of playing against Big Sam, who embraces the fear like a big, fluffy blanket and puts his team under the blanket and hides them all in the defensive half of the field, sometimes all in the defensive third, and then tries to turn the blanket into a wall. This is going to be a weird match.
It's trench warfare in soccer format.
It might be. I don't know. I could see it going so many different ways. I mean, if Leeds scores early, does West Brom just continue to park the bus? Do they open up a little bit? Does it get weird? If Leeds keeps running into the brick wall that Big Sam has built, do they get frustrated and do they get sloppy and give something up going the other way? It could be a really interesting match, a clash of styles.
For your sanity, you need to hope that West Brom doesn't score a fluke set piece in the 10th minute.
That would be the worst thing possible. If they get a goal off a deflected corner that's cleared and it deflects off of a West Brom player and then falls to somebody and they touch it home, or an own goal, even better, and then they somehow add more players on the field to park the bus even more. They somehow play with 14. I'm afraid of this. I'm very, very afraid of this.
I have nothing to contribute to this conversation that's going to be positive.
No. Big Sam probably still trying to work out how he's so crazy. That was his questions after the match at Liverpool was, how's Bielsa so crazy?
There's an entire hemisphere still working on that. So
we'll
let you know. Everyone here on this side of the Atlantic seems to have embraced it. Yeah, that's who he is. We're fine with it. He's got a coaching tree. We're good.
You'd be surprised, though.
That tree who have been really good.
Yeah, so but you'd actually be surprised, Jarrett. There are plenty who, in whatever country, wherever you want to be, who say, hey, wait a minute, maybe need to dial it down a little bit there, Marcelo. Maybe it's time to do a little something different. There are plenty of very smart people in the game who feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
I don't think he cares.
He doesn't care.
I don't think you
God
really
himself could walk out on the field and tell him he needs to dial it back a bit. And Bielsa would just start rattling off reasons why he doesn't.
That's true.
He doesn't care.
Nope.
And it's beautiful. Like, it's just this amount of rejection in the face of opposition that just strengthens him.
It's at 1:00. It's on Peacock. This will be one that I think Atlanta United fans will want to watch, and I'll tell you why. How many times have we seen, I don't know if they'll do it now, but Montreal, Colorado Rapids, Seattle in 2018. Those are the ones that come to mind that we have seen come into Atlanta, or even at home occasionally, play ultra defensive. Cincinnati at MLS's back. Play ultra defensive against Atlanta United. We've seen it a few times. Now you're going to see the most open form of what we've seen from Atlanta United. And yes, Gabriel Heinze will be more open than Tata Martino, and will take more risks at times. He'll be more aggressive. He'll be much more aggressive and risk-taking than Frank de Boer's teams. The platform is very similar. The aggressiveness is going to be dialed up to 11. You're going to see Marcelo Bielsa, who maybe takes that dial and chucks it into the river because he breaks the amp. You're going to see that against the team that's going to park the bus. So how do they work it out? What do they do to figure this out? That's going to be an interesting watch. And if you are so inclined, it's at 1:00. Your numbers on this one, it's at West Brom. They are the home underdog at plus 275. And Leeds is a minus 111. And the draw is plus 275. I'm not touching this one at all.
No. No, I can't because, frankly, like, the ability of Leeds to go out there and play that wide open would scare the hell out of me as a bettor, because they could go out there, put it all together, break them on the wheel, and put up 4 or 5 goals. And then halftime happens.
We've seen it happen, yeah.
Or they could go out there, just stretched wide open, and nothing comes of it. I don't think anybody's going to accuse Big Sam of putting together beautiful Italian counterattacks, but,
no.
I wouldn't touch it. No. I got nothing else other than I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, I'm not taking any
any
risks on that one. Definitely we'll be talking about it tomorrow, because it just is that clash of styles that we will see play out in MLS next year. You're going to see teams that opt not to try to match toe-to-toe 1v1 with Gabriel Heinze's Atlanta United. So then what are the solutions to that? We'll maybe get a peek at that today. I'm sure Gabby will be watching this one and taking a few notes on things that could be going on here, because not a lot of teams in Argentina are going to park the bus in that style. West Brom will definitely be prone to doing that. Let's get into... Go ahead.
Maybe not exactly like he does it, but I am already, not just because of MLS Cup, I'm already kind of intrigued by the idea of Caleb Porter managing a team against Gabriel Heinze.
Yeah, and Porter's not a bus parker. He's a counter guy.
No, but he's a counter guy who will lay the traps if he thinks he can lay them the right way.
Yeah. All right, we've got some Atlanta United questions, and they're popping up in the Twitch pitch. So let's try to hop on these. I've seen the one on Ronald Hernandez. We'll come back to that one real quick, because the other one I think is maybe a little bit easier. We talked about it on Soccer Over There last night. TD Moss out of Costa Rica reported that Jurgens Montenegro, the Costa Rican player for Alajuelense, came to Atlanta not to sign a contract with Atlanta United, but to re-sign with his agency, who is actually based in Atlanta. Pictures were taken at the agency, him signing his new contract, very similar to what Fernando Meza did here recently. Now, the original reporter who said that he was coming to Atlanta to sign with Atlanta United did not back off of that story. He's asked about it on Twitter in a reply to the TD Moss story, and he did not back off of it. He said that is still what he has been told, and he was not confused by the situation, and he's still standing by it. So we'll wait and see. But the player, Montenegro, has re-signed with his agency, which is based in Atlanta, and he was here to do that. Was he here to do anything else? Don't know.
Please put all agency offices in Atlanta going forward. All of them.
It'll make for some interesting things. And I mean, and people are asking,
Yes.
and you guys asked about it last night, and it's a valid question. You know, why would you necessarily fly from Costa Rica to Atlanta to sign some documents right now? I don't know. I don't have an answer to it. But you're getting dueling reports out of Costa Rica about what's going on here. This is a player who has been talked about with a potential move to Europe at some point. He is one of the most promising young players in Costa Rica. So, you know, for him to come to Atlanta, it fits. For him to come to Atlanta United, it fits. He's 20. He'd be a loan with an option to buy, according to the initial reporting. That makes sense. He was also here to re-sign with his agency, which happened. It's not even making sense. Like, that actually did happen. Why did he come to sign with his agency when maybe they could have done that over the Bureau fax? Or any other kind of fax? Or anything else? I don't know. I really don't have an answer. But dueling reports, we'll see where that turns out. We'll see if Jurgens Montenegro posts more pictures around Atlanta over the next couple of days. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The other one that popped up later last night, a player that we talked about when this deal went down, and we wondered if there was potentially more to it at the time. Ronald Hernandez, Venezuelan right back who was playing in Scandinavia, made a move to Aberdeen in 2019, and it was after Atlanta United and Aberdeen announced their partnership. Never really got an opportunity at Aberdeen. Don't know the whole story of it. Don't know the whole story about, you know, was he not a good fit? Did he struggle to adapt? Was it the style of play? Was it the manager? What was it? Don't know. Didn't play very much at all. 2020 has been difficult for him. Family not in Scotland. Hasn't been able to see his family, I think, since the pandemic started, which we've heard many players talk about how much of a challenge that can be. So now the reporting is, because Aberdeen fans were wondering, like, what's going on with Ronald Hernandez? Why hasn't he gotten an opportunity? Why haven't we seen more of him? Is everything okay? What's up? Now it sounds like, according to reports out of Venezuela, that he is coming to Atlanta United. Now, he's a young, up-and-coming right back who has been seen as a first-choice player for Venezuela's national team. And he's kind of fallen out of that pecking order because of his lack of time at Aberdeen. His agent is the same agent as Joseph Martinez. Obviously, the Venezuelan connection as well. So, you know, the Aberdeen-Atlanta United connection as well. There's a lot of connections here that make a lot of sense. The right side is a side of the field that, with Franco Escobar potentially playing on the right side as a right back, if he's not playing center back, with Brooks Lennon, with Jurgen Damm as a right winger, you've got a lot of cover there. But this is another promising young player who could be an addition to Atlanta United. I mean, you follow Scotland closer than I do. You know, what was the sense you got of Hernandez's time at Aberdeen, and were there really any answers to what was going on?
I forgot he was there.
I kind of did too.
Yeah, like hadn't really. He's had 6 appearances.
I think you're right.
I think it was 4 starts and 2 off the bench, or vice versa. Dude, I forgot he was there. Yeah, so that's what I know. Like, when you forget a guy has been on a team for 2 years, not great, Bob.
Yeah, this year was a weird one though. So it's kind of like you have to throw it out, you know, the 2020 or just 2020 in general in terms of player development. And there goes Jarrett breaking things, as he is prone to do on the show.
I would just, thinking about Scotland in general.
That's understandable.
Break some things.
It is understandable. Little bit of a backgrounder on Hernandez. He's 23, just turned 23 in September. Started his career at Zamora in Venezuela. moved to Stabæk in Norway. Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland to a little bit lesser degree, Denmark as well. Look for Latin players more often than you might think. I've seen a lot of Costa Ricans go over there, starting to see some Venezuelans go over there. He went to Stabæk, and with Stabæk's first team, he played over 50 times. Pretty good. Then went to Aberdeen's, played 6 times, started 3 of them. 149 minutes in the current season, and that's it. He's part of the U20 World Cup team in 2017. Don't know all of the particulars on what happened at Aberdeen, but he's looking for a fresh start. He might get that here in Atlanta. Don't know if that would be, and my guess would be he'd be a type of player who maybe initially plays for Atlanta United to kind of get his rhythm back with that lack of time over the last year and a half or so. Wouldn't be a bad move.
This does sound like a Jose Hernandez kind of thing. Maybe with more potential and less of a flyer, but...
Less of a flyer because he's a little bit older and he's got that time at Stabæk that gives you a little more to fall back on and more time with the Venezuelan national team, the full national team as well. So you've got more to work with here. But it is along those lines. And you've got cover. You know, it's not a make-or-break move. It's a move that, look, if it's not working out at Aberdeen and you can bring him over here and you can make it fit with a roster, you can make him fit where he's going to get playing time and you can see what you have, great. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, as long as, I guess my caveat with these moves, with the twos especially, is I'm fine with them bringing in guys who might compete on the twos level as long as it's not inhibiting the development of academy guys. I don't think it would. I'm not accusing you of that. But as long as it's a competition, a guy you're bringing in here to make sure he gets minutes and creating adult competition for some of these kids coming out of the academy. Oh yeah, do it. Those kids, you got to push them in practice and in games, and bringing in somebody like that surely does push some of the young players, I'm sure, and also brings them a bit of experience of somebody who's been at a couple different places and sees how things run. And it's always nice, even when you have a team full of, with the twos case, that is super young. I mean, last year, what were they average? Like 21.5?
Yeah, for the year, I think. There were games where they were under 20.
It's always nice to have guys like that who have, even at a younger age, have been around and can, empathize with that age group, but also the travel involved and, how to kind of deal with everything. It's always nice to have that and to also have your Jack Metcalfs of the world when he was here.
Yeah, you need some variety. Your second team needs a little bit of a mix, for sure. The idea that it's all an academy team, sometimes that ends up being a negative for those academy guys. You need some players who give you something a little different. I don't remember much of a push last season for right backs right now coming out of the academy. Now, that could change this year, but I think they might be a little bit younger. So to potentially have a guy, and look, the reporting is that he would come to the first team. I think he might see his minutes with the second team, at least in the first half of the season, until you can see what you have. It's a no risk situation here, in my opinion, because one thing, you might be getting him on a loan from Aberdeen, where it's easy to sort out. Then kind of helps that you have ownership on both sides, and you're able to work these things out. Those partnerships can be good. The question and the thing that's weird, Aberdeen is doing what they usually do, right? Maybe they're getting a little more competition from Hibs this year, but they're third place. They're competitive, but they're a step below Celtic and Rangers. Nothing's really changed for them. Shea Logan is their first choice right back, and people from Scotland, some of the fans say that he's past it and they haven't given Hernandez an opportunity, and why not? And then you get into the whole thing that there has been a little bit of speculation on it. It was shared with me from the Atlanta United subreddit, but also I'd seen this before from Aberdeen fans. What's the deal here with this player? Was he brought? Did the manager want to bring him in? Did the manager not want to bring him in? Is the manager not giving him an opportunity because he's not one of his guys? I mean, what is it? We'll never know. But he's a promising young player that you might be able to get into your team. This is a good thing. Competition for spots is a good thing. I don't know why that would ever be a negative. And if he comes in and earns a spot, then he earns a spot. And if he beats out somebody who had the spot last year, then he beat him out. I don't think Gabriel Heinze is going to be playing favorites coming in here. It's a clean slate.
I mean, you better not be playing favorites coming in because you're going to have a dearth of talent all over the field. And to the point that's been made about him, you got a dearth of talent of guys who can do multiple things, who can play multiple positions and can move up and down the field as needed. And you've got, if it's a chessboard, you've got more queens on the board than you do pawns that are limited. You've got more characters who can move in multiple directions if you need to fill out the board. Then you've got, pawns or bishops that can only move in limited directions, or even rooks. So you create the challenge. You bring in guys who might be promising that you should be doing that, and you see where it leads you.
Always.
I do buy the idea of Shea Logan kind of being over the hill. I thought he was kind of at the sunset a year or two ago, but
I kind of figured that was why they brought Hernandez in, was to give him that opportunity to push Logan out. And look, maybe he didn't. Maybe he wasn't the kind of player that McInnes, the manager, was looking for. Maybe he just needed more time to adapt, and in 2020 reared its ugly head for all of us. I don't know. I mean, there might not be a dramatic backstory here. It might just be a little bit of bad luck all the way around, and you have to move on.
I mean, it might be. It could be a simple thing as, maybe he picked up knock. Maybe it just didn't mix. Look, Scotland's not for everybody, man. That place is it's brutal physically. It is cold. It is a lot of times. Aberdeen's out there by the water. It is cold. It is windy. You're going to get some unpleasant weather. It's going to rain a lot, and that's when it doesn't snow. There are times in the past where you've taken time off this time of year and you haven't played through right now because there's permafrost on the field. A lot of the Highland teams will have field turf, the hashtag plastic pitch, because if you put down grass, in Inverness, it might freeze over. But that environment might not be for everybody. Although, shout out to the Nordic teams for going and hunting South Americans to take up there, though, because it's a really smart move. You can get guys on the cheap, develop and flip them, because it's not just your favorite hipster teams that want to do that. A lot of smaller clubs are in the business of taking guys and flipping them for financial benefit, because you get somebody, even if it's only once every 5-10 years. Let's say you get somebody, you bring them in for under $1 million, and you struck gold, and you sell them for $10 million. That's huge.
Yeah, 100%. Tofko wants me to say one of my favorite lines, so hold on. Don't worry about international spots. Don't get worked up about international spots. I know everybody will get worked up about international spots. Don't get worked up about international spots. Okay? Happy? Don't do it.
Mildly.
Don't do it. It'll be okay. There could be more green cards coming. Who knows? There could be more international slots coming. Who knows?
I mean, Atlanta United's,
they've never had a problem.
Appear to be undefeated.
They do appear to be undefeated. They have been on a Diego Maradona-esque 1986 kind of run here lately since the team started. So I have faith in them. I think they'll be able to pull it off. A lot of people in the Twitch pitch already wanting to write off Emerson Hyndman. Seeing this multiple times coming through the scroll. I will disagree with the majority here and say that you want Emerson Hyndman, Matteo Sosatu, Eric Remedi, Marcelino Moreno, who will definitely be playing, Mo Adams, whoever your potential new number 6 might be if you go get one, all in camp at the beginning of camp. I want all of them to have an opportunity to impress Gabriel Heinze. Now, maybe he's already made some decisions because he's done his due diligence, he's put in his work, and maybe he's decided, look, I've got one extra player here, they're not going to fit what I need right now, or they're going to need to play rather than be behind people here, and we need to find a loan situation for them. Maybe he's already made that decision. But if he hasn't, I want them all in camp, and I want them all to be competing for spots. You want competition. And if that means somebody loses out, the competition doesn't play that much, that's okay. As long as it doesn't hurt you roster-wise in other places. That's the one challenge here, Jarrett, when you get into comparing MLS teams to teams around the world. You know, I mean, I've seen Pep Guardiola say this. I've seen plenty of managers say this. You want competition at all spots. It keeps everybody on their toes. It keeps everybody fresh. Here, you do get stuck at times with, yeah, you want competition, but if you know player X is going to play 32 of the 34 games, you might not be able to have a starter backing them up because you're going to need depth somewhere else. If that's the only issue here. But outside of that, I want Emerson Hyndman here to fight for a spot. Because we saw good things from him at times. And we saw some meh from him at times.
I want to see him fight for a spot. Now, I like Hyndman. I liked what he was before he came here. He showed some flashes, especially in Scotland.
Yeah. Here, beginning of the season in 2020.
Yeah. The start of the season, he started great. I don't know if him getting COVID contributed to the fact that he just kind of sleptwalked through the middle of the season. I don't know. You know, we don't know if his body just struggled with recovery.
Yeah.
But he is of the guys in the midfield. He is one of those that's going to have to prove it to me. Because I think you could look at it as we brought him in to do what Frank de Boer wants to do in the midfield. And if they get him in there and they say, hey, Gabriel Heinze walks in and goes, hey, this guy isn't what I need for this system, then you got to make a decision at that point. But I hope he can stick because he's shown flashes of being really good in that midfield. Mm-hmm. But this is very much a prove-it situation. And I thought he had one of the more meh performances in that dress rehearsal against Club America that was kind of your, hey, manager's been announced.
Yeah.
Or, manager's coming. Here's your chance to put something on tape for him immediately. And I thought he was kind of meh in that performance. And Grant, I mean, it's not playing Heinze's system yet. I get it. That's still Stephen Glassett's system that a lot of guys looked good in. And he's going to have to show something on camp because he's absolutely in that midfield. Everyone in that midfield is on you have to prove it to me situation.
Yeah, except for Moreno.
He's one of those that's going to be under a microscope.
Right. Yeah, I'll put Moreno in a separate category because I think we know the quality that he brings to the table, and we're not too worried about that with him. But, the others, it's going to be the fit. And you're going to be asked to do some different things. You need guys who can play different roles, and it's kind of funny that how it could end up two players that out of the four, and I'm leaving Moreno to the side. I'm talking Adams, Hyndman, Remedi, Rossetto. Out of those four players, the two that might end up being the better fits for Gabriel Heinze's system are Adams and Rossetto because of their versatility. We know Adams can play the 6. We know he can play the 8. He's very mobile. He covers a ton of ground. That's going to be critical in the way that this team will play from a philosophical standpoint. Rossetto, we've seen him play deeper. He's got that range of passing that's a very important part of this way of playing. We've seen him play higher up the field. I think he can play anywhere in the midfield positions for you. He can serve any of the functions of the midfield. We already know Moreno can do that. Remedi potentially can, but there's been questions about his distribution here lately, and you're going to be more exposed going forward. And it's just been for about 2 years now that we've seen a lot of bad giveaways and bad spots on the field from Eric Remedi. And in Hyndman, I've always thought that maybe the best place for Hyndman and over the long term is to drop deeper and is to play deeper in the midfield. We haven't seen it a ton. He doesn't cover quite as much ground as the others, But in the attacking half, he might be the best of those four. And around the final third, he might be the best of those four. And then you flip it to one of the other aspects of Heinze's way of playing. When you get your 4-3-3, your base, you're going to play out of a lot of times, and you're attacking, it's going to look a lot of times like a 2-3-5 in some ways. Heineman is really good in between, in that 5 up top, if he's one of the attacking midfielders, in between the gaps. He's really good finding those spaces in the attacking part of the field. That's what he was doing really, really well in Frank de Boer's 3-4-3, which has a lot of similarities in terms of the shape and the way the team functions to what we're going to see here. He can find those spots because people are going to zero in on Joseph. People are going to zero in on Dom or Barco or Moreno. Heineman can find those gaps and exploit them. So that gives him a different element from the rest. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And this is also, is there going to be another addition? Is there going to be another midfielder who, we talked about it with Kevin Egan yesterday. Gaston Jimenez out of Chicago played the more defensive, the deeper role at Vélez for Gabriel Heinze. I don't think that they're going to go get him, but that kind of player. Fernando Gago, a veteran who played that kind of role. Because you're going to have a lot of the ball. You're not looking for a lockdown defender in that role. So you need somebody comfortable on the ball. Are you going to go get somebody to play that role, or are you going to maybe reshape somebody who's here to play that role? Could get really, really interesting. But that's the part of the team, that's the part of the roster that I'm looking at going into 2021, and that's the part that I'll be looking at every preseason match, whatever that looks like, every training session that we get to hear anything about the central midfield. That's where my questions are going into next year.
It's going to be interesting if they do bring someone in. The irony for me is that Mo Adams might be better positioned than he was a year ago to make this team and to be an impact player.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of the work he did with the twos. Because when he came here from Chicago, you had a Mo Adams who you're thinking, this guy is a destroyer who we don't necessarily want on the ball a lot, but you want to sit him back there as that 6 between 2 center backs and just kind of destroy things. No, he can play with the ball at his feet. Apparently, he did the encouragement and the time on the ball to do that. He got that. I think he rounded his game out and showed really well. I think he's better positioned for this sort of game. The thing is that I'm going to want to see out of these guys is, and it's I feel like it's simple to talk about, but not as simple in the moment, depending on how you're being defended. But I just want to make sure they're both safe and quick with the ball. I know that's kind of an oxymoron sometimes. You got to pick out your pass, but you want to be quick with the ball, especially if it's dropping back and you're that guy who is that line of defense and play gets switched around. I want to get it back in the back. It's coming back to me. I want to get it back to the foot of somebody who can make something happen. I want to do it quickly and efficiently, but also safely. I don't want it to sit there necessarily and for the defense to have a chance to reset itself. If you're going to be spending that much time in the attacking half, which it sounds like they will, which is fine by me. Go for it.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different way of playing and shaping things and thinking about who fits where. Thomas Jawin brought up something on the Twitch pitch. Said, my concern with Heineman being the deepest is those moments we've seen from him where he seemed to stop running when tracking back defensively on a counter. And I wish I could remember what game it was, but I know when it happened.
Miami.
Was it Miami? I know when it happened.
Miami, that was that counter, and it was he wasn't going to catch the dude.
Yep.
I think it was Lewis Morgan.
You're saying exactly what I was saying.
Awful look.
Yeah, it was. It looked worse than it was because he wasn't catching him. But you were at a point where you needed guys to show they were working hard, even if they weren't actually able to complete the work. And he didn't. It looked really bad. But that's the only time that I remember it. But that's going to be seared into people's minds. And I think I said it at the time, or I said it in the post game with Mike, because I remember the incident really clearly, and I'm like, oh, man, this is going to get talked about. And it's going to get talked about because of the appearance of it. And I get it. Look, I totally get it. But I didn't notice that as a character flaw from him in the way he plays. I noticed it that one time because of the way that it was shot on TV, the way it looked. Because that was a game down there, right? Am I remembering it correctly, Jarrett?
Yeah, you are. That's the game down there. That's the game where, you get the counter because Atlanta has a corner and LGP just heads it out into the great unknown. And it lands at the feet of
Yeah,
Pizarro,
that's it. It was
triggers
that
one of the most insane looking counters you've ever seen. It's like LGP wasn't trying to put on him. He did the right thing. He was just trying to get it the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And he did right at the feet of Pizarro, and then he runs down with Morgan and puts it away.
Yeah, it was.
So it might have been Pizarro he was chasing. But either way, it was. I think
it was Pizarro.
It's not an indictment. It's not an indictment of him personally, but God, it was a terrible look at a terrible time.
Yeah, I don't remember any other times. Thomas says it was more than once. I don't remember any other time that I noticed it with Emerson Hyndman. I'm not saying that's 100% correct. It never was glaring to me. That was the time it was, and I think it was more of the way it looked. But again, that's just me. I do agree, Thomas. What you're saying is that the guy in that spot has to have the competitive fire to put in that run, even if he's not likely to get there. I totally agree with that, and that was the criticism I had of Hyndman that day. But I'm not going to go on just that one. I don't remember any other incidents of it. I don't. He would need work to play in that role. Let's put it that way, because he hasn't played it much. I think he has some of the characteristics of it. Maybe not in this system. But if you want to compare Gaston Jimenez and Emerson Hyndman to me and their qualities and what they bring to the table, they're not so different that it can't be possible. If you want to compare what Fernando Gago brought to the table at the end of his career playing for Vélez in this way of play and what Emerson Hyndman can do on the ball, it's not horribly different. He could do it, but it will take work. But that's going to be the question. Do you want a guy like an Agustin Almendra, who is maybe more of an attacking player naturally, but has been playing that deeper role? Do you want to go get him and spend the money on him? Do you want to work with Mo Adams to be that player? Maybe not as good on the ball, but man, he can cover every inch of grass you need covered. Do you want an Emerson Hyndman who is really good on the ball, maybe the best on the ball of that group, maybe the best short passer of the group, maybe is the better way to put it, and work with him on the defensive side? Do you want to work with a Mateo Sosetsu, who has the best range of passing of anybody in the group, but needs some work to play in that role? Do you want to work with Eric Remedi, who has played in that role the most of any of these people, but his passing has been letting him down consistently for a while, but he covers the ground? There's a lot of different characteristics there that'll be really interesting for Gabriel Heinze as he sorts it out, because I think he would like to play with a single pivot. He would like to. He might not have the players to do it, and that's the thing that I think we all have to understand going into the season. The question, first one for Gabriel Heinze with Atlanta United, was about tactics, and he switched it to positional play. That's his way of playing. That's not, I play a 4-3-3. I play with one holding midfielder behind two attacking midfielders. I play a 3-3-1-3 or a 3-1-3-3 or a 3-3-3-1 or yada, 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 yada. He's going to adapt to what he has to work with. And if he feels like, I don't have the right guy to be by themselves and get too aggressive going forward there, I need somebody who's a good mix. I got a lot of mixed guys. Josetsu can play the 8. We know Moreno can play the 8. Hyndman can play the 8. Remedi can play the 8. Adams can play the 8. They're all comfortable in that mix role. So maybe it's almost 2 mixed guys and then a 10. Maybe Moreno's in a more free role in front of them. Maybe Hyndman's in that free role where he can find those gaps. You might have to move the pieces around depending on what you have. The philosophy's the same. The tactics in terms of the formation and the way you approach a match will vary based off what you have available and the opponent. There might be some opponents that he feels like, well, I need to get a little bit a little more help here for the 6. There might be some where you're going to play Colorado and say, you know what? Every time we've seen them play a team that can push them, they sit back and they're very defensive. I don't need 2 holding midfielders here. I can play with 1, and I can play with Hosetu or Heinemann or whoever in that role, or Remedi, and trust it, because they're not going to put much pressure there. So you're going to see, it's not going to be a static 11. It's not going to be a static shape. It's going to be down to the characteristics of what you have to work with and who the opponent is, and that tactical plan for each match will vary some. And that's okay. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride because it's going to force all of us who watch this team and cover this team and follow this team to analyze things a little bit differently, because there's going to be a different set of philosophical rules, but ideals in the way that the team plays. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let me ask you this. Give it a percentage here. What are the odds that you see at least once you roll out a team where it's that midfield of, what are we thinking, 4-3-3 kind of look?
That's going to be the base.
Yeah, I mean, it's fluid, I know. But
that's going to be the base start. I mean, the way to really think about it is, more than likely, you're going to want to have 2 center backs. More than likely, you're going to want to have 2 very aggressive outside backs who can step forward and really contribute to the attack.
You have 3, but go on.
Yeah. I mean, but you're going to have 2 on the field at this point. So you're going to have a number 9 who is dynamic and can do a little bit of everything. You're going to have 2 wingers who stretch the field, but also have the capability to come inside if the wing backs, the outside backs, stretch the field. Then it gets to your 3 central midfielders, and that's where times it can be a little bit of mixing and matching based off what you need and what you have. And, we kind of went through those characteristics. Sometimes some opponents, you're going to want this mix. Some opponents, you're going to want this mix. Sometimes you want 2 behind 1. Sometimes you want 1 behind 2. Sometimes you want to be able to camp out in the other team's half and knock the ball around. Sometimes you want to open the game up. Sometimes you want guys who are very mobile. You're going to have to pick those spots based off the opponent at times.
So let me ask you this then. If we can give a percentage, what are the odds, or even odds? What are the odds you end up with a game this year where it's where you push Barco inside as sort of that 10 with Moreno sitting maybe behind him, and then a 6, and then like I said, position in this instance is fluid, and you play a Lopez or a Mulroney out on the left side. You ask Barco, hey, I want you to be that 10 focal point in the attack, but feel free to drift and feel free to find the game.
When you do that, in my opinion, you would have 2 behind him. There is a role for a 10 in this way of playing. I think at times some people think there isn't because of the work that it requires. There is. But I think Moreno's a smart enough player to where if that's your setup, and you're not going to take Moreno off the field. I mean, there could be times, to be perfectly honest, that, and maybe it just happens in the way the game plays out, that if Moreno and Barco are on the field together, Barco's more central and Moreno's out wide to go find space. That'll happen just naturally. But if you decide, you know what, this is the opponent where we need somebody like Barco central, okay? Moreno will adjust his play to be more of that mix. We'll play a little bit deeper. We'll still look for his times to get forward, but we'll naturally want to be covering for Barco, so he's in a role where he can do what he does. You'll see that. I don't think that's crazy. I just think when Barco's the 10 in that kind of scenario, you'll need 2 guys who are going to do the work behind him to get the best out of it. I'm interested in the
scenario simply because I think Barco has shown more than, I don't want to say was expected, but we'll say was expected because I got nothing else in my head, than was expected in terms of his ability to defend, let's call it violently, up the field and aggressively.
Yeah, Barco can play centrally in this kind of situation. I think we've seen his game.
I'm fine with him having 2 guys covering behind him. That's fine.
Yeah, and I say that just because you want him to be very free. You don't want him to to be dropping to defend a ton. You want him to be able to be in a free role to impact the attack. I think Moreno in that situation is your perfect complement because he has no problem doing the dirty work and coming back and playing deeper, but he can also cover the ground to get there and play with Barco when the time calls for it. So you've got a lot of good materials to work with here. And that's a huge factor in why Gabriel Heinze is in Atlanta. And I think, people who have been banging the drum that the roster's terrible and the roster needs all this overhaul are forgetting that fact. He did not take the Palmeiras job with a lot of young talent who's in the semifinals of the Copa Libertadores. He said no, and he said yes to Atlanta, knowing, you can't overhaul the whole roster in 1 year, and knowing he's not planning on really being here for 5-6 years. So he thinks he can win fairly soon with what he has to work with a few additions, of course. And I think that midfield gives him a lot to work with. The question's going to be managing the time for everybody and finding the right combinations and getting them bought into this mentality of play. The shaping, the positional play element, let's take the aggressiveness, let's take the risk-taking out of it for a second. The foundation of positioning and stretching the field and opening things up and being focused on being in a position as opposed to just chasing the ball. Those things have been built in. Those things are here. You're taking it to another level with things you're asking the players to do to take chances out of it. But the idea of stretching the field wide, having the third man, the free man in these situations, the movement, a lot of that's here. And I think what I saw anyway was a little bit of a return to the basics of it under Stephen Glass, to the point now that this team, I think, is ready for a Gabriel Heinze. Additions will help it, and I think that 6 is still the most important thing. I thought it was last year. I still think it is. You need a consistent player there. You'd like to have somebody there. They're going to have time off occasionally, but you'd like to have somebody there that you can pencil into the lineup 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times. And you can count on that player because they're the fulcrum for everything for you. That's the number one spot that you need to sort out. And if you have it in place and you think you can work with any of the guys you have and play in that role, great. If you need to go get it, that's the most consistent role for me. You've got to have somebody that you can count on in that role.
Sorry, I'm looking at your whiteboard behind you, seeing what we've got coming up on the schedule.
Sometimes we drift a little bit. It happens.
Like a good midfielder, we just drift around.
It's true. Look, this is all going to be a lot of fun with Heinze. We'll get deeper into positional play.
And shout out to the fans who miss him, but that's not dissimilar. The idea of playing a guy center and having 2 guys cover behind him is not necessarily dissimilar from what Caleb Porter was doing with Nagby in Portland at times. So you've seen it before.
It's not a weird situation. I mean, I see a conversation going on, more conversation about Emerson Hyndman. Man, Hyndman gets people going. It's funny, like for a player,
he does, and
he's just a solid player.
He is kind of on everybody's watch list as a guy who needs to prove it, and I completely understand it. I mean,
I get it.
Is it harsh? Maybe a little bit. I think it is. He did show you well, but I think there is a feeling among a lot of people. He's a guy who has to show me something this year, or they're getting antsy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it is down to the price tag. A lot of it is that he was seen as the #Nagby replacement before Nagby was even gone. He is a good player. You're looking for more than that, I think. Because I think he could be that. But will he turn into that? We don't know. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Lewis Ferguson could. Maybe.
You are really excited about the Lewis Ferguson. I am too.
You put the idea in my head the other day, and now I'm just going to be like, What does Aberdeen want?
Yeah, Thomas Jewin, I got to disagree with you just a little bit. I don't think everybody would be fine with Heinemann on the roster if there wasn't a salary cap. I still think there's a lot of complaints that don't tie into that. But that does factor into it. I don't think you're hampered in the cap. I don't think, anyway. I think you have plenty of talent. I'm not worried about that. You took a chance on bringing him in. It was a valid chance to take. You know? Wasn't a bum. This wasn't a guy who, was stinking up any joint he was in. He played well on loan in Scotland. He wasn't getting opportunities at Bournemouth, which was a bad move for him to go to. And he played well before that at Fulham, right? I mean, this is a guy who had played well, was in a spot where he wasn't playing. You took a chance. I don't even know if you could say that it hasn't paid off yet. It hasn't paid off as much as you would have hoped. How about that? We'll see. As Burns says, and I do agree, he has to produce. And now, because of the competition, and because a new manager, and because of clean slate, and because of some changes of the way you're going to play, there's going to be pressure on all of them. There's pressure on Eric Remedi, because he hasn't. I mean, if for me, and this is my opinion, if you're comparing Heinemann's play to Remedi's play since Heinemann arrived, Heinemann has been the better player. And Eric Remedi in 2018, outstanding, and at times since outstanding. At times,
he still has
really
half
bad.
of the New York City midfield in his pocket from 2018.
He does. But at times, he's also gifted things to other teams. And the Chicago game stands out for me in a big way. And there are others. But if you're going to compare those two straight up, and I don't know if their salaries are as dramatically different as some people think, Heinemann's produced more than Remedi. But Heinemann gets more criticism. So, look, it's the way it goes. All of them have pressure on them this year. If all of them are on the roster, there's going to be competition for spots. There's going to be pressure on them to perform. And they're going to be asked to do some different things. It's going to be fun to see. It's going to be really fun to see this because a lot of MLS teams have a pretty static 11 and maybe even down to 14 or 15 because that's all they really have, and then you've got a bunch of guys that you can't count on to be starters on a regular basis. Atlanta's got more than that. I think they do have talent, but we don't know where some of these roles are going to fit, especially that midfield, because I think there's going to be an addition there. So we'll see. Jawin says, started to get some possible links on incoming transfers. When will we start to see some possible links on outgoing ones? No clue, man. I wish I knew. Look, you don't hear anything out of Atlanta, and that's probably why you don't hear as much about outgoing transfers until the deal's done as you do about incoming, because the incoming transfers you're hearing about from other places. You're not hearing about them from here. So other places might not be hearing about a player potentially coming in from Atlanta because they might not know what's happening until it's close to being done. It's just the way that the media works. Like, players in South America, their agent's going to talk about them leaving the club. That's going to get reported before they leave. And if they're coming to Atlanta, then the rumor's going to start. Players leaving Atlanta, nobody's talking here. Like, the media's not getting anything. It's not coming out of the front office. Nobody's hearing it until it's done. So I don't know if you'll really hear much rumors. Again, as always, it doesn't mean nothing's going on. That means you're not hearing anything. So I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to see everybody have a shot with Heinze, because I think there's some players who the fans might think differently of in this way of playing. And we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. We'll get into other MLS teams in hour number 2. There are some rumors for LAFC. There's some rumors for some other teams about what they could be looking to do. We'll kind of take a quick run around the league as to who should be busy, who could be busy, who to keep an eye on, et cetera, to give us kind of a sense going into 2021 of what the Major League Soccer season could look like. Club America, according to some reports, has a new manager, and it is a former Real Madrid manager who has played in Mexico in his career. Santiago Solari is being linked with the move. Solari was linked to... Jarrett, wasn't he linked to Orlando before Pareja, and then he was linked to Miami at one point as well?
So. Oh, shit, everybody was linked to Miami.
Yeah, so I mean that's not saying much. I want to say he was linked to Orlando.
That sounds right.
I think so. A guy who didn't do horribly at Real Madrid at all, but hasn't had another opportunity since. He's been kind of a mystery. You know, he went to college in the States. He played in Mexico, Argentine national team. That's a pretty good get to follow up Piojo and all that madness and the way it ended with him, to go get Solari. I like it. I think Club America fans should like it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Man, Turco Muhammad is like ripping up his resume outside of the gates of Club America right now and yelling things.
Yeah, where is he going to end up?
DC, if you don't pick up that phone, I swear to God.
They're not.
They wouldn't get him, but I would not mind the ambition.
I think they could, but I just don't think they want to. I think they want an assistant.
I don't think they'd pay him.
Yeah, that's what it'll probably come down to.
Somebody pick up that phone, please.
Turco Muhammad comes with some baggage too, and we've talked about it here before. He's not perfect, but I'm a little surprised that the way everything has kind of fallen. Cruz Azul reportedly passed because he wanted too much money. Club America, that wasn't going to be the issue. Looks like they've passed. Haven't really heard his name come up with any of the MLS jobs. Haven't heard his name come up with a club like Racing yet. Maybe it will. Haven't heard his name come up with the Colombia job. Is still open, but it doesn't look like they're going to get Rueda from Chile, so that variant hasn't happened. So could he go to Colombia? Possibly, but then you're going to be competing with Herrera, possibly. So it's...
You mentioned the coaching carousel there. What about, man, would Becasese go to Mexico? Cruz?
I don't know.
That'd be a hell of a jump.
I don't think he needs to. I don't know if it would be a jump. That's... You see it happen from time to time. Like Argentine managers in Mexico is not a crazy thing. We've seen it plenty of times in Liga MX. I mean, Tata now with the national team. Bielsa went to Atlas back in the day. Like, it's not crazy. I don't know if it's really looked at as a jump or a sideways move or what. Cruz Azul would be a club comparable to Racing in a lot of ways. You know, a big club, but not the big club in the city that you're in. I think Becasese needs to just go somewhere and work, and Defensa was a good spot for him because there were no expectations. He's still young. It sounds like there's a lot of whispers of things about him with not dealing with players well, not dealing with bosses well, those kinds of things. He's got to get past that, and maybe going to a lesser club with ambition that he can go and develop and put in work. Maybe that's a better fit for him. Cruz Azul would have ambition, and you also got a lot of baggage of potential curses as well. You might not want to be part of that.
You go down there and win.
That's true.
Go down there and don't blow a final. Jeez.
This is very true. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Look, John is busy. Turner Kirby said it's pretty cool to see John handing out trophies for your former high school. That is pretty sweet. John is busy handing out trophies and talking on the sideline for today and tomorrow. Hopefully the weather holds out for him tomorrow. But he did leave us with a gift. He did leave us with something very special. He did leave us with our Steve Apolinsky ad reads. And he did...
I thought it was going to be a Baruga yell, but...
No,
okay.
Thankfully. He did leave fresh ones for each one. I don't think he put in any editing. I think he ripped through all of these. Yesterday's scores were meh. I don't know. Let's see how Tuesday goes. Take it away.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Time to catch up with Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH networks. And when I say catch up with, here's how you do it. If you have a wrongful death or serious injury matter, you can shoot Steve an email directly at steve@aa-legal.com, or you can pick up the phone and you can get a free consultation by catching up with Steve at 404-377-9191, or you can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small, go into the taskbar, type aa-legal.com, enter, return, arrow, whichever key works, and get you to the homepage for Apollinsky & Associates, LLC. A pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for that as always. You can get your questions answered there, and you can get them answered at Apollinsky & Associates, LLC in any number of ways, as we have just discussed. So, once again, for wrongful death and serious injury matters, over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for clients in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, only one place that you need to get in touch with. It's Apollinsky & Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We'll catch up with you tomorrow.
I think he might have done that late in the day as the Mountain Dew was kicking out.
Yeah, I couldn't understand everything when he spelled out Steve's name. STV. I would have stopped him and asked him to do a pickup to spell out Steve's name because, oh, buddy.
People miss the hand gestures as well. I can't do that. The reviews are good. Lots of 8s. Lots of 8s. 8.5. Really impressive.
I want to know if he keeps a metronome for the very end. If he's using like an internal metronome to when he does the .com. How many beats he's giving it, or if it varies on the position of Venus in the sky or something.
It varies, and see, I don't think he was listening to the music bed as he was recording these. So I think he was trying to feel it from memory, which was interesting. It worked out pretty good that time. The energy was a little different, though. Now, a couple questions.
I'm not mad at it.
No, it's okay.
And I'm a meme producer. Like, I would have just tried to basically get inside of his head and be like, yeah, it's fine. If it works for you, I guess that's fine.
Oh, those are the worst.
It was actually just good. When it was actually good, just to see if I could break him.
Oh, I hate when people do that. I hate when people. It's like, oh, well, it's okay for you. Yeah, that's fine.
As the son of a voiceover engineer and editor, yeah,
man. Because I'm always going to be like, yeah, that's good. I'm always like, let's do it. Let's knock it out. Okay, we're done. Cool. Let's move on. And if they're like, yeah, that's good. But when they do it, like, yeah, if it's okay for you, that's good. When they add that little inflection, it's like, man, now you got me wondering, is it good or not? Just tell me it's not good.
That's not nearly as fun.
No, it's not fun for me. It sucks.
I know. That's why we do it.
Chiefs coach Steve with a very good point. Do not get inside John's head. I would agree. That can be a dangerous place. Don't want to find out what's going on in that. And another question that came up that I do not understand, and this is a very good question. J-Dub Parker said, so how can't John get his audio to sound this good all the time? I don't know.
Dude, I'm sitting here like listening to him read that off thinking he's absolutely got like a browser of Netscape open looking at this, doesn't he?
He probably did. But I don't know how he made it sound that good because I'm pretty sure he did it at home. I don't think he did it at the GPB studio. I don't think he was there for anything.
He just burned it over an AOL 7.0 disc he got in the mail that he kept.
Man, craziness. People are also thinking you might be at Kroger this morning and not at Publix like last night because your connection is very strong.
Oh, no, I'm actually at home. I'm not in the bunker.
That is a good thing. All right, let's get into MLS because we've talked a lot about Atlanta United, and let's look at the league as a whole and what's going on, what to be looking for, what could be happening, et cetera, et cetera. There's been a few rumors since yesterday. ESPN and their transfer blog of all kinds of different stuff. 2 nuggets on Portland that kind of came out of nowhere. Portland turned down $1.5 million offers from European clubs for Eric Williamson. Reportedly, they don't want anything less than 4. Fine by me. I think that makes total sense. And they're considering sending Jeremy Ebobisse to a second division Bundesliga club on loan. I don't know if that'd be for 6 months or for the year. I'd guess for 6 months. I was a little surprised by that. I think you're a big Ebobisse fan. You a little surprised by this rumor?
I am. I just I thought he had kind of found his place. And I thought he had some good performances, but maybe they think he's not where they want him to be. And they don't think he's going to get there getting the minutes in Portland consistently. Maybe they've got other plans. I'm still an Abobasi fan. I feel very vindicated that I was more of an Abobasi fan than an Abu Dunladi fan during that draft.
You were.
Like, that's one freezing cold take that I dodged.
You had that one right. You nailed that one. We have an update on something we talked about earlier. Stephen Goff from the Washington Post on Twitter. DC United coaching search update. Nothing imminent. Still, several candidates in the mix, domestic and international. Quote from inside the club. Big decision. Being thorough. That's accurate. Uncertainty impacting the 21 season. Planning by MLS clubs whose assistants have interviewed for the DC job. That's interesting. I'm wondering if people are asking for a good bit of compensation for some of these guys. Candidates have included Pineda from Seattle, Chris Armas, who is currently out of work, Pat Noonan from Philadelphia, Ezric Hendrickson from Columbus, Chad Ashton, who was the interim and been at DC for a long, long time, Jill Ellis, Rodolfo Borrell, one of the assistants at Manchester City, and others who haven't been identified. I guess we're no closer to anything with DC. Turner Kirby says, is DC taking the Auburn coaching search strategy?
This is more of a Tennessee coaching search strategy. They're going to hire somebody. Everything's going to be all but signed, and the outrage is going to make them pull back.
I think that already happened. I think Chris Armas got Shiano'd.
Yeah, he did get Shiano'd.
I mean,
who's going to be the Mike Leach in this scenario then?
Well, that part I don't know.
Oh, God, it didn't happen.
The one thing on Shiano was he was never told by Tennessee fans on social media that they would rather have a Papusa manage the team instead of him. That didn't happen.
Boy, Knoxville's going to know that anyway.
That's true. They might have said a Frito pie or something instead. I don't know.
Yeah. Ball Navy probably makes some good Frito pies.
I kind of want a Frito pie. Anyway, yeah, this is getting weird. This is getting a little strange. So let's jump into DC. Why not? We're already here. So they don't have a manager. They don't have a right back. They haven't had one in a long
Lucas
time.
Rodriguez is scoring golazos in Argentina.
Lucas Rodriguez scored a golazo for Estudiantes, not for DC, for Estudiantes. That's not good. You don't have a right back. You haven't had one for a while. We're still back to that point. You've got a bunch of guys in the front six, maybe front five. We'll say front six. We'll include the defensive midfielder here that, as you can hear, John's Yard people came to bother me today. I don't know if they're really settled on who plays out of Jordi Reyna, Ola Kamara, Paul Areola, Julian Gressel, Yamil Assad, Junior Moreno, Edison Flores, Russell Canals. That's 8. That's not including the promising young talent of Moses Nyman, Kevin Paredes, Griffin Yao. That's 11. That's 6 positions. I didn't include Russell Canals, who's probably the 6th. So, except he's played right back because you haven't had a right back. So is he a right back now? I don't know. We'll include him in 12 guys for 6 spots. Do the math. That doesn't work. Because I don't know if any of them have really separated themselves except for Areola.
He's coming off an injury. I mean, he came off an injury.
He'll play. He'll get it back.
He'll play, but, man, DC just can't seem to get out of its own way. For one reason or another, for the last, 5 years, it just seems like they can't get out of their own way.
It's really strange. The back line, you got a solid left back in Joseph Mora. You've got Steven Birnbaum and Frederick Briant, who are both okay. They're getting older. Donovan Pines, one of the most underrated players in the league. I like Pines a lot. I would start him every game I could. You don't have a right back. You've got Bill Hamid, Still one of the better goalkeepers in the league. No problem there. They need to offload some of these people in the front six because they need to play Nyman. They need to play Paredes. They need to play Yao. They don't need to be player 10, 11, 12 in a group of 6. They need to be at a minimum, like 6, 7, 8. They need time. They need to play. These are 3 really good young players. If that means, like you did, where you traded Ulises Segura, does Junior Moreno need to be one of those? Does Russell Canals need to be one of those? I mean, do you want to turn it over to Moses Nyman playing the 6 right now? Maybe not. Maybe you want to play him with Canals. Okay, Junior Moreno, thank you for your service. It's time to go. You can find a spot for him in the league. Definitely. What do you do with that front group? Is Jordi Reyna, who you added in the season, is he going to be the one up top? Is Ola Kamara going to be the one up top? Neither one really produced a ton last year. Do you need to go get somebody else? But on the wings, Paredes needs to play. Yao needs to play. Yao has shown you some really interesting things. Paredes is one of the more, well thought of young players in the league. But you've got Gressel, you've got Areola, you've got Assad. You've got Flores who can play out wide too. I don't know what their strategy is. Because you've got guys who have pushed through now that have to play. And you have nowhere for them to play with the players that you've stacked up in front of them. You mentioned it earlier, Jared, about with Atlanta United too, not blocking guys. At that level, it's an important thing to think about, but you're not thinking about results as much. And if you say, you know what, yeah, you're here, but we're going to play this kid from the academy because we need to push them and see how they respond, we're going to do it because if they have a bad game, they have a bad game. Now you're at the first team level. And these guys have passed all those tests, Nyman and Yao and Paredes. They need to play at the first team level. There might not be really enough time for them to play with all of the other bodies you have in this group. It's really strange.
It is, and I don't know. Like I said, they just can't seem to get out of their own way. It's amazing that they are the way that they are. I hate so much about the things that DC chooses to be right now. In the last 4 or 5 years, they just can't seem to turn the engine over. And the one time they did, and they got in the playoffs, and they played an emotional game that they took to extra time, and then they just got hit with a fire hose at full speed in extra time.
They did. Yeah,
I don't know what you do if you're DC. I honestly
you've got to move some of these veterans that are blocking these guys because you're going into a year. You're going to have a new coach. You're not going to spend a lot of money on the new coach. That list of guys, there's none of them that you're going to expect to walk in the door and win MLS Cup next year. You're going to take this group and you're not going to look at it and say, yes, we're going to beat out Columbus. We're going to beat out Philadelphia. We're going to beat out New England. We're going to beat out Toronto. We're going to beat out Atlanta. We're going to beat out Nashville. I don't know if you're going to look at that group and say that. So bring in a coach. Hire a coach. You're going to give time. If you're going to go assistant, that's fine. If you're going to give Pineda the job, if you're going to give Hendrickson or Noonan or one of the guys who hasn't managed at the first team level yet, you're going to take your lumps. Take your lumps with the kids. Get the right person in who can develop young talent. And take your lumps this year. With the idea that next year they can compete. They can be a team that can surprise in the East. And then, and Burns pointed this out on the Twitch pitch, and I totally agree, then you're in the Philadelphia model. Because then after a year of development and a year of what you would expect to be success from Nyman, from Paredes, from Yao, Jacob Green's a left back who could get time. There's others coming through. Then you're looking at the Brendan Aronson kind of sale. Then what does that do? You move them on. You bring that money in. You bring that cap space in with allocation money. Then you can take the next step. And you're developing more guys. They've finally started to get their development process right. You've got to get it right now, though. Because if you go and you get the wrong person and you keep blocking these young guys from playing, and they don't play more than 1,000 minutes next year, you're just holding yourself back because those guys aren't going to win you a championship. I don't think.
No, they're not. At least not in my opinion either. I mean, how do you approach this? Do you take this, I guess, kind of a Hawks model of the last few years to cross the sport Rubicon here? Of do you get an assistant like a Lloyd Pierce type, who is a guy who is well thought of, can develop young players, and could sharpen his teeth in turning to something more as a coach? Like, instead, as opposed to just developing talent, you're also developing a coach by giving him the reps to develop himself as well, and develop staff. Because it's an interesting sell right now of, hey, here's your roster. How much we're going to spend, that kind of remains to be seen. We kind of need to prune this tree before we plant more seeds. How does that sell to some coaches versus others? And what you've got right there, let's say you're aiming at 2 years down the road to really compete for MLS Cup, and it could be faster. MLS is a weird league like that. You have the whole global transfer market and an academy. When it's functioning correctly, you can flip the script really damn quick in this league. But how many of the guys who are there right now are going to be a part of that push? Gressel's still young enough. Assad is still young enough. Where is Ola Kamara sit in 2 years? Do you need to go get another striker? Do you have one in the academy that you can throw in there and you feel confident that's the guy that needs to be there? Because, we saw what those two previously mentioned players did when they had a lethal striker. And I still like Ola Kamara. He's not what he was necessarily, I don't think. And it's not that he's not ancient by any stretch of the imagination. But you don't have, that strikes fear in the hearts of gods and men striker up top. So take your lumps a bit, but it is a hard sell with a new stadium as well. You just put a new stadium in. You're going to be bringing a new coach. Other teams in the East that kind of had floundered with you have kind of found their footing in different ways while making smart moves, and it kind of feels like you're the last one off the bus.
A little bit. It does. I don't know
Philadelphia, the Revs, other teams that were kind of in that lull.
New England's a really good comparison here because you're talking about two heritage clubs in the league, and New England was in a bad place there for a while when the Jay Heaps era was coming to a close after what got them to MLS Cup 14. It was a good team, and they were still competitive for a year or two after that, but it was fading fast, and there wasn't anything coming in terms of development. There was no real investment in development.
Fast enough.
They didn't, and they didn't.
It's a hard thing to do.
It is, but they didn't do the things behind the scenes to develop either, and that's what you can do in this league and in the sport that I think teams are starting to realize now. Is you can have your first team action going on, and you don't want to pull the plug, and I get it. I mean, Jay Heaps played there for a long time before he was the manager. It's tough to walk away. DC, Ben Olsen, same thing. It's tough. I get that. But what DC did that New England didn't for a while, and New England had to suffer through the Brad Friedel era, which just didn't work. DC finally got the academy part right, and now they've got players coming through that are taking this ability to play. They need to play. Nyman, Paredes, Yao, they need to play. New England didn't have that for a while. New England is only now starting to actually get things right with development. But they went out and they bought intelligently, and they got a manager in Bruce Arena who's really good at taking a bunch of mismatched parts and making them competitive. He did a good job for them. What will DC do? I don't know. I don't know if they have that forward coming up that they can wait a year on. I'm not sure. I don't know what their next generation is after this first group that has broken through to the first team. We'll probably be paying some attention to Loudoun United this year to see what that looks like because I know they have a goalkeeper in Simon Lefevre who was really good, had a couple of just ridiculous games for them. He's 23. He's French. I think he's like super tall. I want to say he's 6'7" or 6'8".
Bracer Forrester model.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I remember a couple sequences with him. I was just like, what in the world? So, I mean, he might be your guy after Hamid. Beyond that, we'll have to wait and see. Let's look else around the the other rumors that are popping off at the moment, Mark McKenzie, we talked about Philadelphia. Brendan Aronson, gone. McKenzie, probably gone. It sounds like McKenzie is going to Belgium and not to your Celtic. It sounds like he is going to Hank or Genk or Genk, depending on how you want to pronounce it and which variation in Belgium you want to follow. Reports in Belgium are saying that it's in the final phase. They're saying it's nearly done. Reportedly, the asking price is around $5 million for Mark McKenzie. Celtic has been in that mix. I don't think they wanted to go that high, and it sounds like he's headed to Belgium.
I think it's a good move for his development. Belgium can still be very competitive. He'll get European games there with Hank, Genk, Genk. I think it's the better move. Just Celtic's not in a good place right now that he's not going to maximize his development there. You can pop off about Scotland all you want, but guys have gone to Celtic and taken jumps, especially defenders, Virgil van Dijk being the most stark answer. And not to say that he would become Van Dijk, but guys have gone there and developed. This just is not the right time or the right environment to go and develop in. It's kind of a mess. Yeah. Genk, Genk, Hank is a much better option, I think, for him right now, and he can make a jump beyond that, and they can be that stepping stone for him. I hope he kills it. I really like watching him.
I've discovered in recent months that the G in Belgium, it has a lot of interpretations.
That makes sense. I mean, just the Flemish, and there's
Flemish.
Languages are weird.
You got some French in there. I mean, you got all kinds of things mishmashed into Belgium.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to give us the definitive, absolute answer, that's fine.
I don't know if there is one.
So I don't know if there is one.
That's the thing. It's like Brugge and Bruges. It's like they're both acceptable. So I don't know. I went and I looked into it, and
he's going to
Flemish
text
is one
you
way,
because he's going to have felt that ripple in the force because you said it.
Probably.
Or he's going to call in between games and just scream it and then hang up.
Probably. The Kaku saga continues for the New York Red Bulls.
Yes, and Dan Graham mentions Kieran Tierney also came from Celtic, and Kieran Tierney was a generational level left back for Celtic. Kieran Tierney just can't stay healthy. That's his problem. That was his problem in Glasgow. I mean, it's still his problem. He just cannot seem to stay healthy.
Right.
But that was like a $25 million move, I think. Genk, Genk, Hank is a better move for Mark McKenzie, and I will absolutely support him on that, and I hope he kills it because, I'm glad they nailed a defender because for a while there, I thought Austin Trusty was going to be that guy for them, and then it just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't really. He was expected to be the one, and he wasn't. Now McKenzie has turned into it. It's we'll see. $5 million. It's a good move. And they've got center backs. They can make this work. Now the production line has to continue for Philadelphia. DC has to be looking at that and say, okay, we want to get Nyman, we want to get these guys ready to go, but we've got to have the next one coming. And I think that you're seeing that in Atlanta now. George Bello will go at some point. You've got Caleb Wiley coming. Okay. And Wiley's played in the second division now, probably more this season. All right. Production line. This is what you need because you want to turn to what you have internally, especially if you're doing what Philadelphia is doing with Ernst Tanner, with a identifiable way of playing, Jim Curtin as well, that goes through the academy. Atlanta, same thing. You want to be able to turn to the guy who has played in that way, with that mindset, with that mentality, with that language about the game, with that way of feeling the game. You want to turn to somebody who's been doing it in your house since 12 years old, as opposed to going and buying somebody who you then have to teach a new language to. So that's where the development becomes a big thing. We'll see what Philly does if McKenzie goes. McKenzie won't be there this year. I just don't see it happening. So Red Bulls, Kaku, he's not going to be there in my opinion either. This is getting a little ugly. They need to take what they can get and move on. Reportedly, Xolos have offered $3 million. Kaku's made noises that he's going to fight the option clause, saying it's not legal for the club to be able to take the option and keep him under contract. If you can get $3 million, look, you're not getting allocation money. You're not going to make enough on the deal. So go for it. Take it, run, move on. It's not going to get better. It's just not.
Kaku is that signing I think everyone is afraid of, hey, we brought in this guy who's really talented. We're pretty convinced it's going to work, and it works for like spurts, but then the lows outweigh the highs. And the ugly moments outweigh the great moments. Because the great moments just weren't that great.
This is very accurate. This is very, very accurate. Move on. Get it done. LAFC going back to one well that has been very good for them, and then looking at a new one. Let's start with a new one first. There are reports out of South Korea linking LAFC to right back Kim Moon-hwan. He's played his whole career in Korea at Busan Park. Promoted to K-League 1 for 2020 after earning promotion from the second division. They struggled. They got relegated again. He was one of their top performers. Led the club in passes, blocks, interceptions. Dynamic attacking fullback. 11 caps for South Korea. Dynamic attacking fullback. That really fits what Bob Bradley wants to do. They need a right back because they never really truly replaced Steven Beitashour. But now this makes us wonder, what do they do at center back? Because they didn't pick up the option on Murillo, the Colombian that they brought in at the end of the season. Does this move Tristan Blackman to a center back? And now you've got to kind of train him a little bit more as a center back. I think he's better as a right back. But if you go get an attacking right back, maybe you're going to move Blackman to center back. Maybe you're going to go add more pieces and actually try not to be paper thin on your back line. I don't know.
Maybe you don't trade the MLS Defender of the Year for something that wasn't something that can be looked at and go, wow, that was a great deal for Nashville. And maybe, I don't know, replace him. I get it. It's hard to replace guys. It's hard to find level replacements. It's hard to find the guy. It's hard to lose a guy who's a key and then find somebody to fill that void in the way that you want them to fill it. I get that it's hard to do it, but for God's sakes, please try harder than what you did this year at LAFC, because, man, it's cool that y'all can play that beautiful high-scoring game. Yeah, you shipped out goals like an Aberdeen oil freighter.
And that high-scoring game only takes you so far if you're giving up the goals.
Especially in the playoffs when you're playing your boogeyman, which is Seattle, who does not give a just one damn about you, about your high-scoring game, as they punt you around the field for 90 minutes.
100%. You have to be good defensively to win MLS Cup. It's the way the playoffs are structured. It's the way playoffs work. It's the way knockouts work in any competition. It's how you have to be to win the Open Cup as well. Yeah, that's how you have to be to win CONCACAF Champions League. You have to be good defensively, and LAFC has not been good enough defensively to win in these situations. You have to. There's just no way around it. I mean, years and years and years of history back it up. They've got to be better defensively, and we'll see if they go down that road.
This 2021 has to be their year for me. Like, this is.
Yeah.
I thought 2020 had to be that year, but 2020 wasn't a great year for anybody just because it's so weird. It's hard to judge anyone on 2020. 2021 LAFC has to. I need something other than Supporter Shield. Like that. Look, that Supporter Shield campaign was amazing.
It was.
It was terrifying to watch
at times,
but you need something else. You need a U.S. Open Cup. You need an MLS Cup.
Yep.
I don't care, because for one thing, Supporter Shield is not going to carry the same weight going forward. Their Supporter Shield carried good weight. That's fine, because the way the schedule is going to break going forward and it's going to be unbalanced, it's not going to carry the same weight for me. You're going to have, and it can carry weight. Don't get me wrong. It's just going to depend on what schedule you play.
It's going to carry less weight. There's just no way around it. It's going to carry less weight.
You got to get it, and you just barely missed out on that trophy you needed a week ago.
That kept you where you are, though. For me, that made 2020 a stable year for them. I mean, it's a crazy year, but you got to the final of CONCACAF. Okay, so they've been to a final there. They've been to a Western Conference final and lost. They haven't been to MLS Cup yet. They haven't been to an Open Cup semifinal. There's steps that they're going to have to take, and it's a big year for them because Diego Rossi according to Transfermarkt, the second most valuable player outside of Europe right now. I think he's got to go. And the move that is being rumored now out of Uruguay would tend to make us think that he is going. There's reports that young Peñarol left winger Facundo Torres, Peñarol, that's where Rossi came from, that's where Brian Rodriguez came from, that's where Facundo Pellistri went to Manchester United from. $4 million deal is what it sounds like. Torres trained with LAFC ahead of the season. They did a friendly with Peñarol and LAFC. He trained with LAFC at that time. Probably a handshake deal, maybe even something on paper. $4 million, it sounds like he's coming to LAFC. That would have to mean that Rossi's gone. You have to cash in on Diego Rossi right now, right?
I would think so. I'd be terrible. And
you might have to cash in on Brian Rodriguez, too.
The cojones to not cash in on him, to think you can get it even higher, man, that's not a bet I'm willing to take. And it's not a slight against his talent by any stretch. I think he's insanely talented and insanely fun to watch. But I'm cashing in because I want to go and, spend that money on whatever's next for me. If I'm LAFC, I'd be really terrified to say, yeah, we're going to hang on to him one more year and see if we can jack that value even more. Because God forbid something weird happens that, inhibits his value from climbing even more. Or makes it fall.
They're in that situation, and the difference with LAFC is that Bob Bradley's been there from day one. He's still there. But they're in that situation that Atlanta was in at the end of 2019, where you have guys that are nearing end of contracts. You have guys that you've got to make decisions about, maybe not this year, but next year. Could be the last year of their deal. Could be their last year before an option. Guys could be at their highest valuation. You've got to make some tough decisions. And it's Rossi. It's Rodriguez. Maybe Vela, although that's gotten quiet since CONCACAF ended, about potentially going to Mexico and Club America.
Does Vela slow down?
No, it's not so much that. I mean, it's just
I'm just asking in general.
Has he slowed down? I don't think so. He had an injury. So, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He could draw a big transfer fee from Mexico. And if you're ever going to cash in, now's the time. Go ahead.
Not has he slowed down. When will he slow down?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not accusing him of slowing down.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I mean, you didn't bring him in to cash in on him, I don't think. You're going to have to make a decision on if you want to. And he's going to have to make a decision on if he wants to do that too, if he wants to push for that. I don't think they do, because I think you could see Rossi and Rodriguez go, and that's fine. But then it's going to be the next group. Atuesta is going to be linked with moves. Cifuentes and Janela didn't show you enough yet. Palacios, the left back, is going to be linked with moves. You've got a lot of things to sort out. So this could be a really weird year for LAFC. I'm not convinced that they're like a favorite right now going into the season, because I don't know what their roster looks like. I don't think it looks like it did in CONCACAF. I don't think it looks like it did this season. We'll see. Sam Williamson says Vela to the Oil Money League.
They fix their defense. I'll be bullish on them if they get.
But they might not have the same attack. That's the thing. Is sure, but they're going to lose Rossi, I would expect. They're probably going to lose Rodriguez. They might be playing a 20-year-old Uruguayan on the left wing. Does he take off like Rossi did, or does he take more time like Rodriguez did? We don't know. So they might be answering one set of questions, but having another set that are new. No clue. Sam Williamson said Vela to the Oil Money League. I don't think. I think if Vela goes anywhere, it would be to Mexico, because he's never played in Mexico. He's never played in Liga MX. And Club America is in that desperate position right now that, do they come in with a big offer to try to rally the troops with a new manager coming in with after these disappointments? Do they go try to get Vela? It got quiet after CONCACAF, so maybe not. But that would be the only move that I think would make sense. I don't think he really wants that. I don't think he wants to go to the Middle East for money. I don't think he's a money guy. I don't think that's where he's motivated. I think Mexico could be a motivation for him. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe if the offer's good enough, then money talks for everybody, doesn't it, at some point, when it gets to that certain level. That's the latest out of LAFC, Philadelphia, Portland, Red Bulls. Who else are you kind of looking at to see what they do going into 2021?
part of it has to do with the fact that God only knows what the ownership's going to look like if the league owns them and how that shakes. But what does RSL do going into 2021?
They don't have a lot to work with at the moment.
No.
They've got Krylock. They've got Rusnak. Rusnak's signed through 21. Krylock's through 22. They didn't really hit on some of their other signings. They're not really that dangerous going forward. Defensively, they've got some good youngish players that Justin Glad hasn't really taken that next step like you thought. Aaron Herrera signed on a long-term deal. He could be one that draws an offer here at some point. You're finally losing Kyle Beckerman, so Everton Luis, Pablo Ruiz. Do those guys become your holding midfielders? What does that personality look like? Do you just decide to play Krylock up top now because you need somebody there, and you play Luis and Ruiz as your two central midfielders? I don't know. And they can't do anything until that ownership situation is sorted out. So I think it could be a rough year for RSL, but they'll play their kids, and they've got good young talent, and those guys will get a lot of minutes, and maybe it'll end up being beneficial for whoever takes them over because you'll have guys that are ready to be moved on at maybe a good return on the investment at the end of next season.
I would love to know how many phone calls they get about a guy like a Rusnak in and out of MLS.
I don't know. I don't think, and I like Albert Rusnak a lot, but I don't know if there's a line of people waiting on him. I would
take him on the right team if I had the room for him. I would take him on the right team as my Joe Johnson I don't need you to be the guy. I just need you to supplement the guy.
Yeah, it could be. In the right fit, it could be. I wonder if that kind of trade will pop up in the league. It could. There's some teams who could use that. We'll see. 2 calls from the Twitch pitch on teams to discuss Minnesota and San Jose. Let's start with the Loons. Up top, they've got to figure that out. That's the number one thing for me, is Luis Amarilla was on loan. He did well, then he got hurt. You brought in Kai Kamara. You didn't keep Kai Kamara. You don't have a forward right now. So if you bring Amarilla back, you got to do a new deal with Vela Sarsfield, or you got to go get somebody else. Number one issue. Kevin Molino gone. You've got Reynoso for a full season. Outstanding. You've got good pieces around him in Robin Laud and Jan Gregush. You've got some good young players in Hassani Dotson and Chase Gasper. I guess Iko Para should be back next year. The defense should be good. You've lost Osvaldo Alonso, but he didn't play a ton this year. And they're talking about potentially bringing him back. I know Sam Williamson is standing outside with a boombox trying to get Osvaldo Alonso to Atlanta. I think that time has come and gone. I don't think he's the same player, and I don't think he's what Atlanta needs. I don't know if he's what a lot of teams need. I think Minnesota, if what Jeff Ruder reported was they're trying to bring him back, they're trying to create that pathway for him to stay with the club after he retires. If those things are true, that's the best fit for him. Sorry, Sam, to burst the bubble, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it at this point.
That team has been so... God, it's impressive how they've gotten this good while missing on strikers so consistently.
I know. Well, Amarilla they didn't miss on. Amarilla was a really good get, but then they had bad luck with him getting injured. And they went and got Kai Kamara, which was a good recovery move, and a temporary one. Now you gotta go find somebody, and you can. They're gonna have money to spend. They're gonna have the ability to go get a good young striker from South America. They showed it with Amarilla. They can go get somebody. And if you go now, if it's an easier pitch now, in my opinion, I would be showing them, this guy, Bebelo Reynoso, he's pretty good. He's going to be setting you up. He's going to be cooking dinner for you. You're going to eat well. Come play. Come be a loon. You're set.
Yeah, I mean, and you could go a lot of different directions with it, but they do need a striker. They need somebody who can carry the load goal scorer wise, because otherwise they're fine. No problem with.
How about this one from Bartimus Prime? Minnesota should go get Jeremy Ebobisse.
Ooh, you mean the guy they should have drafted in the first place?
Oh,
wow. History tells me I'm right. Look, they took when Dunlady was coming out. Ebobisse was more steady at Duke. I thought he was a better sure thing. Dunlady had just the ceiling was through the roof, but the floor was also below the basement. And he got closer to the floor than the ceiling. So, Ebobisse would be interesting if you can go get him. I'm trying to think where else he could go.
Well, I mean, if they're talking about loaning him to a second division German club, Minnesota should go and say, hey, wait a minute. Don't buy that ticket just yet.
Yeah, just let us have him. We'll see what we can do with him.
We'll give you a lot of allocation money.
I wonder if they would go the European route and see if they could find themselves a striker of in the Scandinavian area.
Oh, they've had bad luck with Scandinavia. Don't do that. Go to South America. Go to South America. Come on now. Don't bring up the ghost of Vadim Demidov again, please.
No, I'm thinking like Jan Greguš. Go get the striker version of Jan Greguš.
No. Go get somebody to play with Reynoso. I would be going to Reynoso and saying, "Hey, dude, you got somebody in mind? Let's make some calls." I'm building around Reynoso. So no, I want somebody who's.
I didn't even mention Demidov, and he got brought up. I love when I don't have to mention Demidov's name, and he still gets summoned.
Yep. San Jose, your Quakes.
Yeah, buddy.
Matias Almeida turning down every job, and he's been offered every job, it seems like. And he said, no, I'm staying. I'm under contract through 22. I got Wando back for another year. He ain't done. I ain't done. Are the Quakes better in 2021?
Oh, I don't think so. It's great that Wando's back. But,
that's sad.
Yeah.
Why not? Why are they not better?
I want to see what they do in the offseason. I mean, as of right now, they're not for me, but I want to see what they do in the offseason. What are you going to do if Wando can't give you, 25 games this year? You still have some talent on that roster that's a lot of fun, but I always wonder if they're going to give the proper investment for Almeida to build that team up.
Ding, ding,
the way
ding.
he wants to do it.
Yeah, and he's not asking for $20 million guys.
He's not asking for the moon.
No, I just think he needs some pieces to fit a little bit better what he wants to do here because he doesn't have enough. He doesn't have enough, and I don't think he's got enough centrally for sure. And I like Jackson Ewell. Judson, I could take or leave. They need somebody else in that midfield to step up. I don't know if they're expecting one of their kids to do it. I'm not sure. Shea Salinas just keeps on doing what he does, but more from the bench now. Okay, cool. Carlos Fierro hasn't really been the guy that you needed him to be. Espinoza has been. Christian Espinoza has been great. Cade Cowell, like him as a young guy coming through. Really like what Cade Cowell's done as a homegrown. You're going to get Tommy Thompson at right back again now after Nick Lima was shipped out. Center back, you've got Alanis, you've got Youngverth. It's not bad. Marcos Lopez, that's not bad at left back. You've got Daniel Vega under contract.
It's not going to win you a trophy, in my opinion.
Well,
that's the problem.
But is that the problem? And this is the question, and this is where I think we're getting into in MLS now. Is everybody going to be competing for a trophy every year? Can San Jose realistically expect, with what they're spending, to compete for a trophy every year? I don't think they can.
I think they brought in Almeida, and they built this up in a way that we want to be able to capture lightning in a bottle and give a shot at a trophy, even if it's a one-off kind of thing. And then, man, it hadn't happened.
But you've got to have everything go right. With the amount of talent that you've got and what you're spending, you've got to have everything fall into place. There's just no way around it. Like, you've got to be perfect. And, like, you've got Daniel Vega under contract for another year. He doesn't need to play much. He was a walking disaster at times. You've got to play Marcinkowski, maybe Ochoa, your other goalkeeper. You've got to play them, and hopefully that helps you a little bit. You need to be a little more secure defensively. The system, the idea, the philosophy is all in place now. You're going to have most of the core back. You need to go add the pieces on top to be able to compete and knock teams off. The style is supposed to bridge the gap in the spending. It can only go so far. It did at times. The MLS's back tournament, good run. The late in the season bounce back after a really rough run of form. Okay, good. Do you have enough talent to be able to have that style, that philosophy bridge the gap? I don't know. And you've got some holes. I think you need a central attacking midfielder who can get you goals. You need more out of Carlos Fierro on the left. And you need more defensively. That's 3 things that you need to go out and spend a decent amount of money on. And I don't know if they'll do it.
I don't either. So we'll have to see. Not far from them, though, is another team I've got interest in, is to see what they do in 2021, is Colorado.
Colorado for me. And some of this is down to Robin Fraser. I've never really been a fan of Robin Fraser as a manager. As an assistant, I think he's done a good job. As the head man, I watched that Chivas USA team that he had, and look, they had problems, sure. But it was maddening to try to figure out what he was trying to accomplish. That was a long time ago. It hasn't really gotten any better. They have doubled down on what they have, and they're not going to spend much either. They re-signed Austin Trusty. When he didn't make it and make the jump to Europe, they went and got him, re-signed him to 23. They did the same with Kellen Acosta. He didn't make it to Europe. They went and got him. They bring him in. He's under contract for this year. Keegan Rosenberry from Philadelphia. Brought him in. Good player. These are all good players. Danny Wilson, good. Drew Moore, you brought him back. Veteran, cool. Sam Vines, promising young talent. Maybe going into the last year of his deal. I'm sure there's probably an option on it. You got a lot of other pieces. Diego Rubio, Andre Shinyashiki, not huge goal scorers. Jonathan Lewis, you signed him through 24. He didn't make the jump to Europe. Another one you've locked up. Another guy who didn't quite make it that could be a good player for you, but is he going to be a trophy-winning player for you? I don't know. You got Nomley, you got Benazet, 2 talented players. Nicholas Mosquita, a guy that I've always liked in this league. You got a lot of pretty good. There's not even a Christian Espinoza in this group. You've got more pretty good than San Jose has, but you don't have anybody who can put you on their back in this group. And I don't think you're good enough to be a top team.
We can't all have Greg Jennings.
It's true. I don't know. Abubakar, another one they signed. Another one that they brought in from another team in the league. What Colorado's doing is they're taking those guys that don't quite make it, don't quite make that move to Europe, and they say, okay, you thought you were going to sell this guy to Europe. We're not Europe. We're going to bring them in anyway. We're going to give you allocation money. We're going to make this worth your while, but they're going to move away from you, and you're going to create the space for the next guy coming through. But yeah, we're going to take them off your hands. We'll take the guys who weren't quite good enough to go. Is that going to be a strategy that works? It's a strategy they're doing. Abubakar, Trusty, Acosta, Lewis, Rosenberry, maybe. I don't know if Rosenberry was really looked at as a Europe guy. I think Rosenberry had a falling out with Jim Curtin more than anything. I don't know if it's going to work. They're kind of bland.
I was about to say, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's what they're going to do.
They're just kind of bland to me. One we haven't talked about that I want to finish with, as we'll talk about other teams around the league as things come up in the offseason. New York City. New York City and your guy, Ronnie Dyla, the manager. it was an up and down season for them. They had things outside of their control. Eber getting injured, the Matriza situation. But they're kind of in the same situation as they have been. They've got a lot of talent. They have bigger expectations than I think they've ever truly delivered on. And I don't know if any of that changes in a new year. It's Sean Johnson back in goal. Matarrita reportedly being shopped. Okay, if you can get a return for him, that's fine. Good center backs, as usual, in Callens and Chanot. You've got Ibiaga as a reserve. You've got Tennerholm, who's one of the best right backs in the league. Now, no Alex Ring, and that's going to be the question, but Keaton Parks.
Can't get over that, but Keaton Parks and Sands.
Keaton Parks, James Sands, yeah. So you should be okay. You should be fine. You got Maxi Morales, still doing it. Medina, I thought, looked a whole lot better this year, starting to return the investment that you put into him. To Jory Shradi, I like.
Castellanos still there?
Yes, Castellanos still there. I like him. That's been a big
America's
success
favorite
story.
heel.
Yeah, totally. And Eber. You've still got a lot of talent. But are they going to take that jump ever? And they're going to get into the Columbus, Philadelphia, Toronto, Atlanta conversation? Orlando. Are they going to get into that conversation this year? I don't know.
I don't know, man. But Parks and Sands feels kind of like a Callum McGregor kind of situation where it took a managerial change with Dyla at Celtic coming and going to kind of unlock some of these young guys. And some guys really benefited, some guys didn't. They lose basically the Scottish version of Manuel Castro in Gary McKay-Stevens. So I don't know what they do for depth. Because they could do better for depth. I don't even know if he landed anywhere or not. I think I said last year or earlier this year, that I wasn't sure if Dyla survives the 2021 season. I think I'm more bullish on that right now, that he will survive the season. Whether they win anything remains to be seen. I think he's going to get through the season, though.
I think he gets through the season.
They've got enough talent. I think they've got enough talent to get through, even if things aren't perfect. But Dylan Cup competitions where it's a one-off, I've seen that movie before. It's not always fun for Dyla teams and one-offs.
I don't know if he's back in 22. I don't think he does poor enough to lose his job during the season, but I don't know if he's back for 22. I just don't know if they take the next step.
Maybe just wait for it. Maybe he's on a 2-year contract or something, and they wait for it to run out, and then here you go. Bye.
Yeah, he hasn't been bad. It's just it hasn't progressed.
It can be better.
Yeah,
and you're NYC. You're expecting to be better.
But and here,
if he was doing this in Colorado,
right?
Yeah, it'd be great.
But he wouldn't have this kind of talent in Colorado, and that's the balance here that we have to figure out with NYC. They've kept their talent. They've been very good, but is that good enough?
What's interesting is you look at his most successful spells. It's been with, lower teams in Northern Europe, and getting them to play together and to play up to competition and punch giants in the nose. And
he's not in that situation in New York.
No, he's not. And that's where I'm going. That's where I was about to go with it. It's like he's not in that situation.
Yeah, New York's an interesting spot because, I think the expectations are that they're a contender, and they can be, but I don't think they actually are at the moment. And I don't know if they're going to do anything to be that going into next season. Because they've got a good group coming back. I just don't know if it's a contending group. And I don't know if Dyla can elevate it. Well, New York's a weird one. They're going to be a one to watch for sure, especially how they start the season. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. A couple of things from Twitter to clean up here before I ask you a question about one other team. Tafka asking about Atlanta United Fan TV's rumor, and this is following up on the reporting from Mario Alberto Sanchez about Ronald Hernandez, the right back from Venezuela, who is at Aberdeen, who hasn't played at Aberdeen. We talked a lot about it in the first hour. Tafka said if this is true, I think it may mean that Mesa's leaving, and I don't see it related to the center backs at all. I don't know if it means anybody would be leaving, because I would assume that he'd be coming in on a type of number and maybe even in a supplemental roster spot where it's not going to affect your senior roster. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. But I don't think it's going to affect the center backs. I don't know if it would affect anybody, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if it would. But we'll have to see how the roster would shake out. Meza did not come to mind for me. That's to somebody that it would affect. A lot of conversation between Thomas Jewin and Tafka on Twitter as well about MLS salary floors and truly wanting parity and et cetera, and there's some back and forth there. We won't go super deep into it. I think San Jose and Colorado, because Tafka mentioned San Jose, Houston, Colorado, et cetera, those three. San Jose is spending some. They're not going to spend like some other teams, but I wouldn't call them not spending. You know, they went out and they made sure they got Espinoza. They have some talent. They just haven't spent above and beyond. Colorado absolutely has a strategy that we just went through. They're picking off those guys that don't make the jump, that they're bringing in. Guys that are going to be maybe lifers in MLS and be really good players in MLS. They're going to go get those guys. And they're going to have to pay them well because these are good players. So they're spending. They're just doing it in a different way. Houston's an odd one to me. I want to see what they do in year 2 with Tab. I think he had a mishmash of talent in year 1. They've finally moved on from Albert Ellis, which they needed to do sooner. They didn't. They have moved on from Mauro Manotas. You know, can Darwin Quintero continue to take a step? Can Memo Rodriguez continue to take a step? I like Memo a lot. Can Christian Ramirez be the number 9 for them? Can Fafa Pico come in and be good for them? But then also the kids, the young players that they've added. Is he going to help them develop? They're looking at something over time. So I won't even put them as being cheap at this point. I think you've got teams that are taking different strategies. Go ahead.
Was Christian Ramirez the striker that Minnesota needs right now and they sold out?
Well, maybe. If he's a starting number 9 in this league, I think there's a question mark about that. Can he do it for 34 games, not a run of 10 here and there? We've never really seen it, so I don't know. He might get that opportunity in Houston, but he's got to beat out Mateo Bahamic, the forward they're bringing in from Argentina, from second division, from Instituto, who they loaned back there after he came in at the very end of the season. They loaned him back, so he's been playing. Ramirez has got to beat him out. We'll see if he can do it.
Let's see what happens. I will not. It'll take me a while to get over the Albert Ellis thing, just because I really like Albert Ellis. I was very high on Albert Ellis, but my God, they waited till like the 11th hour to make that move and probably dented the value they got in return because they were too damn stubborn to sell him before they should have, when they should have.
Yep. 100%. And it affects what you can do, because if you had done it earlier and got a good return, you would have been able to have more allocation money to work with. And then you could have increased the quality of your roster. You didn't do it that way. Manotas, I don't know if they got enough of a return to get allocation money. I'm not sure. But teams like that, you've got to think that way. And once you get to that point and you feel good about it, make the move, get the allocation money, then your cap can grow. I know it's not like for like exactly, but basically you bring in more allocation money, you have more money to spend. Okay. That's how you get better. If you're not going to go out and spend big transfer fees, bring in that allocation money to help you spend more. They didn't take advantage of it.
And now we get to see like what they do. And look, there's added pressure for them and for Dallas. You have Austin coming into the fold.
Good point.
Austin is going to come in, and they are going to come out swinging, and they're not going to be shy. And I don't know how much pressure you actually put on Austin to do too much in 2021, but they're going to come in. I expect Austin to come in here and basically be like, hey, this is all reward, no risk for us. So we're just going to go out here, and they are going to fire shots across the bow left and right at Dallas and Houston. And God forbid they beat both of those teams the first time they play them.
Oh, that's going to be madness. Final question for you before we clean up anything. If you've got final questions out there on the Twitch pitch, I think the Twitch pitch is now figuring out lineups for the Star Wars universe. Okay.
Oh, they did like the Christmas one on Twitter the other day, and it was interesting.
Saw that. Yeah.
So,
there's always takes on these things. The Twitch pitch is working on it. Nick Alifi's in the Twitch pitch helping to figure these things out. So good to see that.
That's just going to make it even more chaotic.
It will. It definitely will. Nick needs to get on the Discord. I thought John would be the last one on the Discord. It's actually Nick. Nick needs to be on the Discord so you guys can continue this conversation. Final question for you before we finish it up with the listeners. The reports out of Miami that David Beckham will take a more hands-on role in 2021. Good, bad, and different, or are you just entertained?
I need Nick to do the voice. I'm curious. I don't want to sit here and say it's great, it's terrible. I don't know what to expect. I'm just curious if that settles, if that satisfies the jury. Because what kind of role does he play here? How much input does he have?
He's an owner, so he should have a lot of input, I would hope.
I don't know. How much input does he allow him? Yeah, but I mean, even
how much input does he want to take is maybe the way I would put it.
Is he going to sit over everyone's shoulder and pull a Jerry Jones and be GM by proxy?
Oh, that'd be great. Do it. Do it.
Man.
Do it. Sixth Gear asked about the Messi rumor to Miami. Garbage. It was part of the Dia de los Inocentes in Spain. There's nothing to it. Messi and Suarez don't have their WhatsApp group like planning with a countdown to go to Miami. No. I think
imagine passing on Luis Suarez when you could have had for Higuain.
I don't know if they passed. Let's use the proper language here. I don't know if they passed.
That's fair. Imagine not getting him and getting Higuain as your consolation prize.
We don't have to imagine that part because we're seeing it. Getting kicked out of games after the final whistle.
Fewer goals than actually same number of goals as Jake Mulroney.
And Nick Alifi is besmirching David Beckham in the Twitch pitch. Yeah, no real surprise there.
Oh, that probably needs to have a filter.
Yeah, he might trigger some of the naughty words. It might happen. You never know. I don't know. We've just never seen David Beckham in this kind of role. I mean, he obviously knows a little bit about the game as a player, as playing in some of the biggest clubs in the world. We haven't really heard him talk about what kind of team he would like to build, what philosophy he would have. We know he took the academy side of things very seriously in Miami. At least he was really front and center with a lot of that and talked a lot about it. So developing players, I mean, he was one of those guys that developed at Manchester United. You'd think that he would get that. So he's had work on the youth side in the past. He had an academy for a while of his own. I think that part is good. That'll serve Miami really well. Does he get into this is the kind of roster I want to build, this is the kind of play I want to see on the field for my team? I don't know. Somebody has to, because what we've heard in Miami, and this is all secondhand, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of different ins with Miami, it seems like, and they don't always say the same things. So Miami is very strange, and I think one of the reasons why is something that Paul Tenorio said on Sirius XM FC. You've got Beckham. You've got the Moss brothers. You've got Son in Japan, who's putting a lot of the money up, but I don't know if he's really pushing in any direction here. You had Paul McDonough as a sporting director who had probably very clear ideas, very clear opinions. Diego Alonso, I don't think he's sitting back and just doing nothing. He's probably had opinions too. And I don't think any of those were necessarily aligned. And you had different people doing different things. I mean, they changed their head of business operations early last year, going into your first year. That's a bad sign. You never got a front of the jersey sponsor. That's a bad sign. I know the stadium stuff, a lot of that's outside of their control. I get it. The roster stuff, you made your 3 biggest additions after the season started. That's a bad sign. So somebody needs to grab the reins right now going forward and have something at least going in the same direction on a regular basis. If that's Beckham, let's see what he does. Somebody's got to be consistent, though. That's the number one thing for me. Is just the lack of consistency in their thought process. You haven't had it.
No, and you need to have it this year because Nashville just rolled you in year one, outperformed you, and at the risk of simplifying because it's not that simple, Nashville went out and straight up just blue collared you. Like they went blue collar compared to you, and just ran past you on the initial run here. How do you respond if you're Miami? What do you do with the guys you have? I mean, you did grab some guys in the middle of the season. It got you to the playoffs, but it didn't really get you much beyond that. And some of those guys are...
And then you blew it up.
They're kind of...
And then you blew it up.
Yeah, and then some of those guys you still have that are like the key guys you brought in the middle of the season, they're on the back end of their careers. How much longer are they going to give you?
Right now, you need a goalkeeper, and maybe that's Romero, who's been warming the bench in Manchester for a long time. Okay, that's fine. You need a goalkeeper. You need a left back. Patrick Seegers is not a starting left back in this league. You need a left back. Looks like you got two center backs in Figal and LGP. Looks like they're not picking up the option on Andres Reyes, bringing him back. You might need a right back. You might decide Dylan Nealis is good enough. I'll give them that one. So
God, if Mikey Ambrose gets more minutes with Atlanta than he did with Miami, it has a better season. Oh, man.
Mikey's fine. Mikey would have been better than Patrick Seegers for Miami, but they decided not to bring him back.
That's not a shot at Mikey.
Yeah, I mean Mikey's.
I thought Mikey earned his stripes, pun intended, in 2019 with Atlanta, and he showed you what he can do.
I think Mikey's a perfect fit to be in that role that he's going to be in here behind Bello.
Uh-huh.
So you need a goalkeeper, you need a left back. We'll give them the right back. You need to decide if Victor Ulloa is the guy you want in the midfield with Pizarro and Matuidi. If he's not, you need to go get somebody. Let's say they decide that situation is good. You need to decide the right wing because you have Lewis Morgan and you have Matias Pellegrini who are both on the left. Is one of them going to move over to the right? They could. That's fine. Inverted wingers are completely fine. But then you have no depth on the wing. You've got three up top. You're going to play Gonzalo Higuain. So you got to do something with Julian Carranza and Robbie Robinson. Could one of them move over to the right? I don't know. You spent a lot of money on Pellegrini and Carranza. You didn't do anything to develop them. You've got no depth beyond what we've talked about here. You're in a bad spot.
It does kind of feel sometimes like it was built as a I don't know if you remember this. When I was a kid, Nickelodeon used to do a contest every year where if you won the contest, they let you loose in a Toys R Us back when Toys R Us existed. And they basically gave the kid a timer and they could go around with the shopping cart in whatever amount of time they had and get whatever toys they could, and they could keep what they got. It kind of seems like that. Like they went out and they grabbed a bunch of pieces, not thinking about how it's all going to fit and development and style and all that. It just seems like they kind of hey man, this is a supermarket sweep. You go grab what you can.
That's what it kind of felt like. We've also had some cracks on Luis Suarez. Multiple different cracks from different directions on Luis Suarez here. Alex Basine says Suarez would have been perfect in Miami. The language exam would have been easy. He already speaks the only one spoken there. That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, he might not have...
he wouldn't have needed any help with it.
Might not have gotten some people arrested, potentially.
Yes, that's true. Now, Chris Hutchison does ask the question, do you think the Suarez Teaches Italian course is worth the investment? I'm going to go with no. I think it's pretty limited.
Man. I think it's going to be actually not as good as the Aldo Rain from Inglourious Bastards, the Italian course. You're going to get more out of that.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get more. Probably more colorful stuff out of that, right?
Yeah, better accent, too.
Yeah. I don't know about Suarez's Italian accent. And he might only have, the 5 things that they told him before the language exam. That might be all he has. Eesh. Poor Luis Suarez. Poor Juventus.
Oh, man. No, not poor Juventus. No one feels sorry for
They
Juventus.
got busted. They're just trying to get Luis Suarez.
Laughing at them saying, hey, it's an Edward. No, do not. If you sell him to them, go ahead and just rob them blind, please.
I think they had already decided to move on from Suarez by that point, too. Like, I don't even get what Juventus was doing with giving the answers and potentially, getting people banned and suspended and fined. And I'm waiting to see if anybody from Juventus actually gets in trouble. Did they do this in a sloppy way where it can be pointed back via an email to somebody in Juve's front office that, like, they gave the answers?
Man, I hope it is. I hope it's in like text messages and emails, and I hope it's just the most dumb, incriminating thing possible.
Yes, I would agree with that. I hope so. That'll be a lot of fun. Nick says Suarez should have just ordered the Learn Italian coloring books on Amazon. That would have probably got him through the exam. From the things that they gave him, it doesn't seem like it was that hard.
No, it doesn't. And like, y'all not have Duolingo in every other country? I know you do, because I see stuff all the time about how like other countries, like I think in England or Ireland, like Gaelic is the most commonly used language on Duolingo or Babbel. Like, y'all got that? Use it. Father Hubbard.
I think Suarez can afford Babbel. It's pretty good.
Maybe.
I think so. I think he can handle it. He didn't. He had to get the answers from
He cheats at
some
Babbel.
people. He cheats at Babbel. How do you cheat at Babbel? He cheats at Babbel. Good grief. It's bad times. All right. I think that's going to do it. I think we've hit all the questions. I think the Twitch pitch is still sorting out their lineup. I retweeted it, so if you're listening to this later, at Chiefs Steve has the spreadsheet figuring out the lineup. I mean, it's down to the gaffer and the translator and everything. So you guys can help continue that. If you are a subscriber on Twitch, if you are a subscriber on Patreon, you should have, in some form of an email or message sent to you, a link to our Discord. If you have not gotten that, send us a message. We'll get you taken care of and get you into the Discord. You guys can continue the conversation there. We'll be back tomorrow. Mike Conti will join us. Jared, are you hanging out tomorrow? You back?
There's a distinct possibility.
Oh, crazy times.
Oh, man.
Wrapping up 2020 with Peachtree Post flashbacks.
Yeah. It's like the old days. And you watch the old days and you're like, man, what the hell was that?
We didn't know. We were figuring it all out and making it up as we went.
Oh, no. It was absolutely made up as it went along.
Yeah, it was absolutely done. It was ridiculous. Steve, I will get you on the link for the Discord. Send me a reminder on Twitter so I don't miss it after I do everything here at the end of the show. You've got games today to keep an eye on. The big one at 1 o'clock with Leeds and West Brom, El Loco versus Big Sam. I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. You've got Manchester United and Wolves at 3. Brighton and Arsenal's at 1 o'clock as well. Can Arsenal continue their good run, or are we back to the hot seat with Arteta? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Burnley and Sheffield United at 1. That'll be wonderful, I'm sure.
Thierry Henry for Arsenal. Let's see it.
Patrick Vieira, he's out of work. You can go get him. Vieira's ready.
Nah, Vieira takes the Montreal gig.
There you go. That's it. So Henry goes to Arsenal, then Vieira comes into Montreal. Okay, I can follow that. That works. Or Vieira just goes to Toronto and messes everything up.
Oh, even better.
Good times. Barcelona and Eibar. No Lionel Messi for Barcelona. That is at 1:15 today. Sevilla's beating Villarreal right now this morning. Villarreal's been on a big winning streak. They're going to have to make a comeback. And then tonight, Mataflow, I might need a quick bit of update from you. It is the playoffs in Ecuador. The Grand Final, thank you. Is it at 6 or is it at 8, Mataflow? Because I'm looking at SofaScore, and they've got it at 8:15 between Liga de Quito and Barcelona. I'm going to get that time right for you. It's on Goal TV. Goal TV, first leg was 1-1, so this is the second leg. Yeah, I've got it at 8:15, Mataflow. I need to double-check this. Highly recommend, if you have Fanatis, first off, fntz.co/soccer down here. If you have Fanatis, you get Goal TV in English and Spanish. If you understand Spanish, that's great. Enjoy the game in Spanish. But if you want a really fun experience, listen to the English call. I think Nino Torres is on the call. He's generally the lead English voice on the Ecuador League. Nino's a blast. I love the way he calls the game. He does it solo. It's really fun. You are in for a treat if you've not heard it. And it's the second leg of the final. It's at 8:15. I loved the Colombian final from the weekend. Was going nuts about it. So
this is because all finals should be two-legged.
They should be two-legged, and this one is 1-1, not 3-0 coming into it. Liga de Quito's hosting it. Should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm going to check one more thing, because I want to get this time right for you guys, so I don't mess you up. Yeah, I got 8:15 on live soccer TV as well. I think it's 8:15. Goal TV will have it. Fanatis has it. We'll talk about that tomorrow, too, for sure. We'll probably be talking about that on the Discord, actually, tonight, if you're a subscriber. That will definitely happen. We're not doing a third hour. No, I got Jarrett for 2 hours today, 2 hours and 16 minutes. I didn't expect that, so I'm not pushing my luck.
No.
I got lunch to
We don't do 3-hour shows.
No, we don't do 3-hour shows. Sometimes we do 2 hour and 59-minute shows. We don't do 3-hour shows around here. That's a tagline.
This is like that. It doesn't rain in Baton Rouge at Tiger Stadium. It's just a thick mist.
Yeah, that's true. Sean asks before we go, no show on New Year's Day, right? That is to be determined. Maybe it won't be scheduled, but it might happen. I don't know. I'm not going out and doing anything on New Year's Eve, so it doesn't really matter. I think are there games on New Year's Day? I think there are. I want to say there's New Year's Day.
There's probably
games this year.
There'll probably be like some team in England that has to play 2 games on New Year's Day.
Yeah, no, you got Manchester United and Villa. You got Everton and West Ham. So yeah, you got the Tony Pulis less Sheffield Wednesday hosting Derby as well. So yeah, I think we're probably going to do a New Year's Day show. And John is on Georgia Public Broadcasting at noon and the rest of the day. So make sure you check in on the Georgia High School playoffs. You can watch those on Twitter and Facebook as well. That'll do it. Jarrett, thanks for hanging out.
Absolutely.
Back tomorrow, you going to hang out with Mike? You gonna hang out with Mike at 10 o'clock?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fun. There's no telling what nonsense we will get into at 10 o'clock. That's kind of what we do around here.
That's actually dangerous, too.
It's very, very dangerous. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.